The war may be over, but the struggle is just beginning. The missiles have stopped flying. The statements have been issued. The maps haven't changed. But behind closed doors in Washington, Brussels, and Tel Aviv, another battle is underway. One not fought with bombs, but with strategy. Because what the United States sees now is the beginning of something far more dangerous than a war. A new alignment, a quiet alliance, and a threat to the world order America built after World War II. Iran, Russia, China. Three nations with different histories, different systems, and different goals. But now, one shared interest: to challenge American dominance. And after Iran's defiant survival in the 12-day war, the axis feels more real than ever. So, what will the US do next? Can America break this triangle before it hardens into something permanent? And how far is Washington willing to go? Let's step into the shadows, where real power moves are made. In the weeks since the war's end, Washington has been quiet, at least on the surface. But make no mistake, intelligence agencies, military planners, and think tanks are working overtime. Because from the US perspective, what just happened wasn't just a regional conflict. It was a test. A test of how far Iran would go, how far Russia and China would support it, and how much the American-led system could absorb before it starts to crack. Iran didn't just launch missiles, it launched a signal to the world that it is no longer afraid, that it has allies, that it has options, that US pressure alone cannot dictate its future. And for America, that is unacceptable. So what's next? First, containment. The US will likely step up efforts to isolate Iran economically and diplomatically. New ones may target secondary players, Chinese banks or Russian logistics firms that deal with Iran. Sanctions may tighten. Washington will push European allies to do the same, even if quietly. But the reality is, sanctions no longer bite like they used to. Iran has oil buyers. It has alternate payment systems. It has China, which leads to the second move: divide and distract. The oldest play in the strategic book. Break the alliance from within. Expect the US to exploit the differences between Russia and China. All three have overlapping goals, but not identical ones. Russia wants to challenge the West militarily. China wants stability and trade, to pressure Moscow with Ukraine talks, and to destabilize Iran economically so that its partners see it as a liability. Iran wants autonomy. America's aim will be to drive wedges, to remind Beijing of the risks of being seen as too close to Tehran. And then there's the third and most dangerous option: destabilization. Covert operations, sabotage, cyber warfare. We've seen it before: scientists mysteriously assassinated, facilities catching fire, systems crashing, none of it confirmed, all of it denied. But these are the weapons of a shadow war, and the US has used them before. Could this escalate? Yes. But Washington may calculate that weakening Iran from within is more effective than confronting it head-on, and that's where the next chapter may unfold. Not in war zones, but in protests, in sabotage, in currency crashes, in media manipulation. Soft war. Psychological operations. Target the seams of the new axis and try to pull it apart before it solidifies. But here's what America may be underestimating. This isn't 2005. Iran is not the same isolated state it once was. It has endured for decades of pressure. It has developed indigenous missile programs, drone industries, cyber capabilities, and, most importantly, strategic patience. And now, with Russia and China offering diplomatic cover, trade alternatives, and geopolitical relevance, Iran doesn't need to fold. It can survive, it can push back, and it can shape the battlefield both real and political in its favor. That's what's changed. Not just Iran's capability, but its confidence. Russia, though weakened by its war in Ukraine, is still a nuclear superpower with global influence. Can China, quiet, methodical, massive, is building a global system that doesn't depend on Washington. In this context, Iran is no longer an outlier. It's a partner, a pivot, a symbol of resistance. And as the West prepares to counter this alliance, the Axis too is preparing. Iran is strengthening ties in Latin America, in Africa, in Central Asia. Russia is expanding energy deals and arms exports outside Western control. China is accelerating its Belt and Road projects, digital currency experiments, and security pacts. In other words, the world is realigning. And America's next move, whether containment, division, or confrontation, may not be enough to stop it. Because what's forming is not just a response to war. It's a response to decades of unilateralism, invasions, broken promises, and economic coercion. And in this new game, Iran has emerged not as a victim, but as a catalyst. The question isn't just, what will America do next? The real question is, can the US stop something that's already in motion? This isn't just about missiles and maps. It's about systems, power, legitimacy. Iran, Russia, and China aren't rushing into war. They're building a world in which they no longer have to ask for permission. And that, for Washington, may be the greatest threat of all. This is Shadows of Strategy. Subscribe for more, because the next global conflict won't start with gunfire. It will start in silence.